Oh, hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for taking your afternoon to spend with us. What I'm going to look at today is mindless eating solutions. Before I get started, how many people are original Texans, born and raised here? Okay. You know, I'm from Iowa, and when I first got out of college, my first job out of college was in Amarillo, Texas, and I had an unbelievable, amazing year there. It was one of the most amazing, fun years up to that time. But I remember I worked in the office during the week. On the weekends, I worked in or on Saturdays, I would work in the plant, okay, to make some extra money. I remember one of my first weekends in the plant, one of the guys said, you know, you kind of talk a little bit funny. He goes, where are you from? And I said, Iowa. And he goes, that'd be north of Oklahoma. And I said, yeah. And his buddy next to him kind of goes, and they grow potatoes up there. And I go, no, that would be the other Iowa. So, well, regardless of where our favorite state is, and people are born in Texas, your heart will always be in Texas. My heart's always going to be in Iowa. If you look at these BMI maps, and who hasn't ever seen these before? Who's like, okay. Well, these basically show, they're color coding to show us how fat we are state by state. And if you look at the first one, like 1991, you can see we weren't very fat, but you can see the states get darker in 1996. And by 2003, we've got to add new colors. They were so much overachievers, we had new colors. So I'm really blessed to work with some amazing guys. And I thought, well, what would happen if the trend continued? What would this map look like in the year 2025? Well, if you guys are ready for this, you're going to have to look pretty carefully. That is totally made up. But there's this thing, and here's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a couple myths that make us fat. I'm going to talk about some really cool new research we've been looking at about how to turn some of this stuff around. Then I'm going to look at the smarter lunchroom movement. It's something I think is really cool and it's incredibly promising for kids we have in our schools. And then I'm going to end with some, hopefully, news you can use. 3 things you can take home tonight. Well, here's our lab here, and our mission is to discover and try to disseminate what we think are going to be transforming solutions to help people eat better. And I'll give you an idea what that's like when we look at our first myth. Here's what a lab looks like. It's not like bubbling beakers and guys with crazy hair and lab coats. It's more like this.
Ever eat a whole bag of chips when you're not even that hungry? Why? Well, maybe there's something going on that you're not aware of. Finding out what it is could help change the shape you're in. At Cornell University, diners head for lunch at what looks like a restaurant, but is really a lab where students prepare to observe them as they eat. The diners are guinea pigs for research to uncover the secrets of our eating habits.
There's pasta alla bolognese.
Check out this test.
You can take as much as you want.
On this day, they tell the test subjects, you can have a free meal if you simply rate the food for us.
Have a good lunch.
Then the man in a blue shirt, acting as a waiter, says,
go ahead and get some water over there and I'll bring you right over.
That's an excuse for him to take the plate and secretly weigh it. There's a scale under that flowered cloth before bringing it to the diner and then doing this unappetizing thing.
That's gross.
To diner after diner.
I'll get you another plate. I don't feel comfortable like giving this to you.
That gets them to take a second plate and serve themselves again. But the trick is that the second plate is bigger.
Enjoy.
This test is not about rating the food, it's about whether people take less food when they have smaller plates. This woman thought she put more food in a smaller bowl.
I actually noticed I put more in the smaller pasta bowl than I did in the larger plate.
But the opposite was true. She and most everyone put 25% more food on the bigger plates. We're not aware of what we're eating?
Oh, it's amazing. We eat with our eyes, not with our stomach.
Food psychology professor Brian Wansink runs the lab that's been doing this research. And now he's written up the results in a book aptly called Mindless Eating.
We really don't pay much attention to what we eat or how much we eat.
Well, I think I'm paying attention. I'm sure concentrating while I'm shoveling it in.
Well, most people believe that we know when we're full. Well, we don't really know when we're full. Now, shortly after we did that research, I was giving a talk at the Institute of Medicine at Washington, D.C. And these people are really smart people, but for some unexplainable reason, they all have a British accent. They could be from Laredo, and it'd be like Laredo British, And I talked about this, and I just parenthetically mentioned the study, and somebody in the back said something which seems to make a little bit of sense. They said, surely something as basic as the size of a bowl or plate wouldn't influence how much an informed, intelligent person eats. And that's what we want to think, those of us who are health professionals. We want to think that if we can educate somebody about how something influences them, they'll stop doing it. That if we tell somebody, you might not have realized it, but smoking is not good for you, that they'd go, thank you. Doesn't work that way. But I thought, what if, as a miracle, let's say a nutrition educator, you had 90 minutes to get across one point to a smart, informed, educated person? Would it work? Well, we did that. I took 60 graduate students, very smart, very ambitious, very motivated. And for 90 minutes one day, I did nothing more than tell them that if I gave them a big serving bowl of Chex Mix, they would take and eat more than if I gave them just a slightly smaller bowl. Okay? So I demonstrated this. I showed videotapes. We discussed it. We had people break into discussion groups to figure out what they could do to avoid having this ever happen to them. We all did interpretive dancing. And at the end of 90 minutes, these were motivated, educated, informed people who then went back home for Christmas vacation and returned 6 weeks later to the invitation of a Super Bowl party I was having. I was having it in like one of those sports bars. And so when people came in, they were funneled to one of two identical rooms where they could get their snacks. And their snacks were, Chex. This isn't even transparent. This is crazy. So they went. In one case, they were big bowls. In the other case, they were small bowls. These are the exact bowls I showed them 6 weeks earlier. So if they had the big bowls, they'd fill up their plates. And when they got down to the end of the table, which is filled with other stuff, somebody came up to them and said, hey, we're having a little lottery thing. If you can guess the score of the game, you win, I don't know, something. And do you want to fill the card out? They go, yeah. Win something? Uh-huh. But they had to figure some place to put their bowl, their plate with this Chex Mix on. And the only place they could put it was this uncovered part of the table, okay, underneath which there was a hidden scale. Yeah. 2 steps ahead of me. Not just 1 step, 2 steps ahead of me. And what we found is the typical person took and ate about 53% more Chex Mix if you simply gave them the bigger bowl. Now, 210 calories more once a year isn't going to make any difference. But if that happens every day of your life, just mathematically, you're going to weigh about 17 pounds more next year than you do this year. And these cues are all around us. Okay? But what do you think people said when we said, you took about 50% more than those other guys? Why do you think that was? Well, the thing that most smart people fall into, and it's called the intelligence trap, which means we can basically rationalize anything we want to ourselves. So people say, well, I took a little more because I didn't have breakfast on Tuesday. It's a Sunday. But we want to see, where does this end? Does this really have any limit? And what I want you to do before we do this is I want you to think, and a little bit earlier the question was posed to you, how many people remember a time when they've overeaten? I'd like you to think of a time when you most recently ate a meal to the point of regret. Okay? Now, just to give you some benchmark, most people can think of a time within the last 2 weeks where they ate to the point of regret. So I want you to think specifically of a meal, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it. Think. Now, we should be pretty well calibrated to know when we're going to be full, right? We eat 1,000 meals a year. We should know, I just really ate twice as much as I should have. Think of that meal and answer, why did that happen? Was it because of emotions? Were you either really happy or sad or bored? Or were you celebrating and really happy? Second, did you do it because you were really hungry? Or third, did you do it because the food was really, really good? So do your clicker thingy. I feel so 21st century with these clicker things. let's take a look at what you thought. Wow, this is really neat. What we find when we do this research in a different way with maybe not audience members like this is that typically about 12% of people say that the last time they overate was because of emotions. Okay? Usually about 50% say the last time they overate was because the food was really good, and about 36% say they did it because they're hungry. Okay? Well, we thought, what would happen? What would happen if we took people who weren't hungry and we gave them food that wasn't any good? So we did this study, and this is just outside of Chicago here. We took people who just finished eating dinner, they came into a movie, and we gave them those really big buckets of popcorn, you know, the ones that are like $14. Or we gave them the really big buckets of popcorn, the ones that are like $14.10. But this wasn't normal popcorn. This was stale, 5-day-old popcorn. I'd kept it in an entomology lab for 5 days at 55% humidity. There's like styrofoam pellets. Well, here's what happens if somebody gives you a big bowl of popcorn that's fresh. You go to the theater, you sit down, and you go, hump, 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 hump. The person next to you tries to ask you a question, you go, Can't talk, eating. Hump, hump, hump. And one thing we find out is that the typical person who arrives at least 5 minutes before the movie begins will eat half of their handfuls of popcorn before the trailers are over. But here's what happens if you've been given a 5-day-old thing of popcorn. You walk in, you sit down, you're happy. Ooh, free popcorn. You have that first bite, and oh, guys, it's terrible. There's sticks in your teeth. So you put the bucket down and kind of around. But then we'd find that people would watch the movie for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and popcorn. and this would continue. They'd continue to eat through most of the movie, to the point where by the end of the movie they would have eaten 34% more if we gave them the big Holy Roman Empire-sized bucket than the slightly smaller one. But now what do you suppose happens when they left the theater and we said, hey, why'd you eat so much? Was it because you're hungry? They said, no, I wasn't hungry at all. We say, well, it's 50% or 34% more because it was really good. People go, no, it was terrible. I mean, we even had 2 guys try to get their money back for the popcorn. Well played. But no. But if we said, do you think the size of the bucket had anything to do with it? What do you think people said? No, how could it? No, there's no way. And this is why these things have such a huge impact on us, is because we all want to believe that we're smarter than a bowl or bucket. Okay? And as long as we believe that, we're not going to change anything. Even in the best of all possible worlds, we might say, well, maybe I got influenced that once, but now that I know about it, it shan't happen again. Well, let's take a look at when does it begin. I learned a long time ago you don't put embarrassing photos of kids up on the screen unless they're your own. When does this begin? Well, we did a study a while back where we looked at 4-year-old kids and we gave them small bowls, or like 8-ounce bowls or 16-ounce bowls to pour in Fruit Loops. And we found the typical kid would pour about 46% more Fruit Loops into a bigger bowl, and they would also eat most of them. But it didn't matter whether they were the skinniest kid in the class or the heaviest kid in the class. It influenced everybody equally. And this is really powerful, because how many of your kids end up eating out of the same bowl that you eat out of? I'm embarrassed to say mine do more than I like. It's a really easy way to just get them to eat less mindlessly, to eat less but to do it mindlessly. Well, let's take a look at this. Do another time for another test. Would the size of the plate or bowl ever fool you into eating more? 1, never, ever, ever. Number 2, are you crazy? 3, no, I'm a lot smarter than a bowl. Or 4, well, maybe. Let's vote. 30, 30, 30, 10, I'm guessing. Okay. Oh, you guys, you're just trying to make me feel good. Well, let's take a look, not at you, but we'll take a look at some professionals. We're going to take a look at people that deal with really overweight people every day. These are bariatric surgeons. They make gobs and gobs of money doing tummy staples, doing surgeries, doing things like this. Think it influenced them? Wow. Great dinner party Express Scripts throws. What do you suppose is happening here that might have messed up the way that you ate? This is a short time ago up in St. Louis. I was giving as a keynote at nighttime, and I had just talked about how the size of, among other things, how the size of plates tremendously bias people. And then they had their reception after dinner. Now the reception was about 20 dessert stands set up around this really big kind of cool hotel. And what we did for half of the dessert stands was we gave them little 9-inch or 10-inch plates. The other 10 stands, we had 12-inch plates, which are more along the lines of what you and I have in our kitchen, okay? Well, even though this was within about an hour of me just talking about this, what we found is that people who took a bigger plate from a stand ended up serving 36% more desserts, okay? Well, these weren't normal desserts. These were like stuff. Cookies and fried cheesecake wedges. Yeah, I mean, next time you're in St. Louis, I mean, forget the arch. All right, go for the cheesecake wedges. I mean, then see the arch, okay? But no, these are people who should know better. I mean, they deal with this every single day. But again, if we think we're smarter than a bowl or plate, we could hear even a really compelling case for this, and an hour later, be filling up a plate. Well, let's look at this, how it works in other contexts.
His tests also found that people pour less liquid in the tall, skinny glasses than short, wide ones. Would even a professional bartender fall for that?
Pour the amount of whiskey you'd pour here if you're going to be pouring a whiskey in the rocks.
Wansink asked the owner of this bar to pour a shot into both kinds of glasses.
There we go.
All right.
Were they equal shots? Watch what happens when Wansink pours them into measuring beakers.
Ah, look at that.
He had poured much less into the tall, skinny glass.
That's quite a difference. It's almost half as much.
In fact, when Wansink asked dozens of bartenders to pour, they averaged a third more liquor in the short, fat glasses.
I guess I'm gonna have to buy more taller glasses.
So these cues are all around us. It's not just the size of our serving bowls. It's not just the size of our cereal bowls, the size or shape of glasses, but it's also the size of serving spoons. Not our utensils. That doesn't change things. It just makes us eat longer. But it's also the size of serving utensils. If you end up using a teaspoon to serve food rather than a 2-ounce or 3-ounce label, you'll serve 14% less and eat 14% less. But you know, after this research was done, I was given a talk at one of the big dietetic conference for the year, and I was talking about something else. And just parenthetically toward the end, I happened to mention the study about glass shapes. And the very first person after the talk was over to ask a question kind of ran down, kind of jumped up and grabbed the microphone in slow motion. And then asked this question in the most dramatic way you can imagine. I mean, she would make Charlton Heston look like a community college actor. Okay. she goes, you know, it's like her eyes were closed. She was so channeling somebody. She goes, if even the professionals are fooled by the cues around us, what hope is there for the rest of us? You know, and people are just frozen, you know. This person up in the back corner started to do a slow clap, you know. And I remember I said, you know, I within 2 days of figuring these results out, in our lab, we just got rid of all the short, wide glasses in our homes. In 2 weeks, most of us got rid of all the short, wide glasses in our homes. One thing that happens is if you know that you're going to pour about 30% more pop or juice or gin in a short, wide glass, why kind of say to yourself, Now that I know that, it shan't happen. For I will focus with every pore. You're not going to do that. No, this bartender didn't do that. We did this study with 86 Philadelphia bartenders, and every one of them, when we'd show them how biased they were, they'd go, no, you tricked me somehow. We're like, okay, well, why don't you do it again then? And this is less than 2 minutes later, we showed they poured 30% more. They poured 2 minutes later, and they're just concentrating. Even then, they poured 21% more. I mean, this stuff is so hardwired to say, now that I know it, it won't happen. No, I mean, education, I'm a big believer in education, but the first thing I did when I was president of the Society for Nutrition Education was I changed the name to the Society for Nutrition Education and Behavior, because it's a lot easier to change our own environment than it is to change our mind. Well, let's take a look at this. Some people say, well, come on. If I get tricked into pouring a little bit too much, serving a little bit too much on my plate, I just don't eat it, I know when I'm full. Well, let me ask you this. Can you fill this out? How did you know last night that you were finished eating dinner? How did you know your dinner was over when you were eating last night? One, was it when the food no longer tasted good? Was it 2, when you no longer felt hungry? Was it 3, when your plate was empty? Or was it some other reason? So go ahead and do your thing. Let's take a look at that. When your plate was empty. Well, I did this study. A while back, I was living in France, and I asked 150 Parisians, sophisticated Parisians, how they knew they were through eating dinner. The number one answer for Parisians was, I know I am through eating dinner when I am no longer hungry. The second was, I think I know that I'm eating dinner, I'm through eating dinner when the food no longer tastes good. Those are the first 2 reasons. They're internal cues. I mean, they're using their taste buds and their tummy to say, enough. About 6 months after that, I asked 150 Chicagoans, good Central Time zoners like us here, how they knew they were through eating dinner. The number one answer was, you guessed it, when my plate was empty. The number 2 answer was, I know I'm eating dinner when the TV show I'm watching is over. But which are external cues, external explanations to stop eating. And it's an external cue, whether it be with the person next to us or plate size or the TV, in our world are almost always going to push us to overeat. So the best thing to do is not to say, now that I know it, shan't happen. It's just to change those cues and get rid of them. So here's the second eating myth. What happens if your plate never empties? I mean, would you just keep eating like the family dog until we blew up? Well, we designed this refillable soup bowl. And this is an actual restaurant. And this woman here, what we did is we took soup bowls, drilled holes in the bottom, drilled holes through those tables, and then strung food-grade tubing to the bottom of the bowl, through the table, into these big cauldrons of soup. Okay? There's 6 quarts in that cauldron. And as this woman eats, the level in that soup bowl is going to imperceptibly start to drop. When she stops eating, it's imperceptibly going to start rising again. Okay? To the point that she is going to have to finish 6 quarts of soup before she sees the bottom of that bowl. Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's terrible. Oh. But now, how many of you, if you're eating from a bottomless bowl for 10 minutes, would know something was going on? Well, we all would, because we're all smarter than a bowl. Remember that? But of about 180 people that we did this with, guess how many figured something was going on? Oh, yeah, exactly right, 2. Yeah. One guy dropped a napkin and went to pick it up. Yeah, and there's all this Borg-like tubing underneath the tube. And this other person, I think getting that he wasn't at like a Viking feast, grabs the bowl and pulls it like this. I mean, this is pressure-fed soup. It hit the side of his cheek. Sort of, the woman next to him went, ah! and the guy across the table stood up so fast he knocked his chair over, So yeah, we had to have a conference to figure whether we were going to get rid of that date or not, but we did. Well, one of the things we find is here's the soup, what the table looks like. You can see all these, looks like you've got these levers. It looks like you're like on U571 or something when you change the valves. One of the things we found is that the typical person who's eating out of a bottomless soup bowl ended up eating about 73% more soup. Okay, but when we ask them, wow, are you full? They go, no, how can I be full? I still have half a bowl of soup left. And we eat with our eyes and not with our stomach. It's one of the reasons that, your dietitian says, look, don't stand in the light of the freezer eating out of your Ben & Jerry's pint. At least dish it into a small bowl at one point so you're going to know how good of a boy or bad of a boy, how good or bad of a boy or girl you're going to be. It's interesting. This study only went on for 10 minutes, and we clean things up and bring in the next group. In 10 minutes, out of 180 people, there were more than 15 people who ate more than 32 ounces of soup in 10 minutes. When we were analyzing the data, one of the guys analyzing the data came in. He says, I've been looking at a lot of covariates to figure out who these people are. And he says, I think there's a name for them. And we're thinking like, well, piggish people or hungry people or starving homeless people. He goes, guys. 15 out of 15 were guys. Yeah? So let's look at some solutions for homes and communities. If our problem is that our immediate environment causes us to overeat, well, the solution is not to say, great, now that I know it, it shan't happen to me. No, the solution is just simply turn around anything that pushes us in the wrong direction. When people say, eating, solution to mindless eating must be mindful eating, right? And I kind of go, for maybe 5% of the population it is. But for the other 95% of us, we come home, we've had a day, we've got still 15 things on our to-do list. The kids are running feral. One of them's naked from the waist down. The phone's ringing. I cannot cut a pea in half and say, am I full yet? No, it's just not going to work. So for the rest of us, the solution ends up being to set up our environment in a way that enables us to eat a little bit less or to eat a little bit better, but to do it mindlessly so we don't have to think about it. And if it's big plates that cause us, what we found, to serve about 22% more, well, geez, we'll use smaller plates. Don't say, now that I know it, it shan't happen. Big bowls cause your kids to pour a lot more cereal or us to pour more cereal in smaller bowls. Wide glasses cause you to pour too much pop in. We use tall, skinny, narrow glasses. And we found the same thing. The first food you see when you open your cupboards, you're 3 times as likely to take, in our research, as the 5th food you see. Well, so don't put your least healthy, chocolate-covered foie gras in front of your cabinet. Put that off to the side. Well, for mindless eaters, are there mindless solutions? It's kind of cool. We've got a website, mindlesseating.org, that has a lot of tools that might be of use to you. We recruited 2,000 people. And we said, let's do a really kind of cool little study. Let's give each of these people one of 20 tips. We'll give you a tip and we'll say, follow this for 90 days and we're going to track things. Now, these are all sorts of things, but let me give you an idea. Some of them were like, use a salad plate. Okay, if you did that, on average, you lost about 2 pounds a month. Only eat in the kitchen or dining room, you lost about 1.5 pounds, and so forth. But what we found, on average, these tips usually resulted in about 2 pounds of weight loss per month. But here's what was weird. It wasn't 2 pounds the first month, 2 pounds the second month, 2 pounds the third month, which is what probably most of us would expect. Instead, here's the pattern. It was 1 pound the first month, 2 pounds the second month, and 3 pounds the third month, which is perplexing to us. I mean, all we do is think about food, but we couldn't figure out why it happened. And at that time, I got a presidential appointment to go down and be in charge of the Dietary Guidelines. So I moved the family down to Washington, D.C., and just forgot about that problem. Until, and I'm going to show a couple pictures of people here who agree to let me show their pictures. Until about a month later, I was giving a talk for the USDA in Denver, and this woman and her husband came up to me at this reception after the talk. The woman says, oh yeah, hey, about a year ago, my husband and I kind of made this one change that we read in Mindless Eating, and he's lost 45 pounds, and I lost 32 pounds in just the last month. She says, the only thing we did is we never sit down for lunch or dinner ever if there isn't both a fruit and a vegetable on the table. We don't have to eat either of them. In fact, it could be like a banana from last September. They just have to be on the table. Okay? And you can think of a lot of ways or reasons this might work. But I said, wow, that's really cool. I said, why do you think your husband lost 45 pounds, though? And she goes, She says, after about a month or two, he got really encouraged that he's losing a couple pounds, so he started making other changes. Like instead of drinking beer, he now drinks red wine. And I go, well, why do you think that would make any difference? And she says, he doesn't like red wine. And it shows sort of the power of like a little ripple. You get a little bit of a success, and it makes people kind of go, wow, I feel empowered. I'm going to make a bunch of other changes. In contrast to what we usually try to do, which is we try to make people make 400 changes, which lasts for about 6 hours. Well, shortly after, my boss, when I was the secretary for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and he was the former governor in North Dakota, and he said, and he wanted me to go and give some talks in North Dakota, like 5 talks in 2 days or something. And I was giving this talk in Grand Forks, which is up in the border of Minnesota. And it was kind of late at night, and the room was kind of like this, but it also had a balcony. And there was some guy in the upper corner of the balcony who the entire night stood up holding his coat shut like this. It's kind of unusual. And at the end of the talk, we were kind of getting ready to go back to the hotel. And he comes down out of everything with his coat still shut, and he comes up to me. And he says, I've been waiting to show you something all night. And I'm saying to myself, oh, Lord, let it be a gun. The guy opens his coat. He goes, look at this sweater. He goes, this sweater was skin tight on me 7 months ago. I lost 34 pounds in 7 months. And what I do is I start eating cottage cheese as soon as I get home from work. And I said, well, why did that make a difference? He goes, well, he said, I used to get home from work. We would eat dinner at 6 o'clock. Then we'd start watching TV, and we'd get hungry, so we'd eat ice cream before before bedtime. He says, now I come home, we have that cottage cheese, so we don't have dinner till 6:30. We start watching TV, and we don't eat ice cream. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I said, but I can't believe you could lose 5 pounds a month by not eating ice cream. What is this physics you talk about? And he goes, well, no, he says, that wasn't the only change. He said, after about a month or so, we thought things were going pretty well. We just stopped eating dessert except on weekends. And so you see this power of making one change that sticks and the ripple it has in other areas. I think it's really powerful for us that are interested in health promotion and working with other people. And it takes us to the notion of, well, how much is enough? We can get incredibly discouraged if we watch those terrible documentaries, that talk about how all of America is over 600 pounds and we're just we're small planets are starting to orbit around us because of our critical mass. And in reality, we did a study of 2,500 women between the ages of 18 and 72 and asked them, how much weight would you have to lose before you were happy with your weight? And 4 out of 5 had less than 18 pounds. Less than 18 pounds, that's 1.5 pounds a year. If it just means when you're home eating in your dining room or your kitchen, with everybody we've looked at, that's going to cause you to lose 18 pounds a year. Using a smaller plate's going to help. So I think there's a lot of small solutions that can help the intermediate goals that most people have. Because there are people who want to lose 200 pounds, but they're not the majority of who we deal with. Well, I want to show you how we're trying to take some of these ideas to the schools. We started something in 2009 when I got back from Washington, D.C., called the Smarter Lunchroom Movement. And it started like this. I got a call from the New York State Department of Health. And I know what you're thinking when I say New York. Yeah, well, but that's where I live now. And I got a call from the New York State Department of Health, and they said, how much would we have to subsidize fruit in high school cafeterias for kids to take 5% more? So let's say the typical apple costs 50 cents. How much would they have to subsidize it? 40 cents, 25 cents, so that kids would take 5% more fruit. And I don't know how many people have been in a high school lunchroom in like the last couple of years. Yeah, a few. But they haven't changed since the rest of us were in high school. They look like this. This is a school district up where Lake Placid is, which, Lake Placid is like northern, it's more like a southern Antarctica. And so the fruit in a place like this would be in these nasty metal chafer dishes in the dimmest part of the line underneath the sneeze shield. You'd have to like contort yourself, like be a Circus Soleil person to kind of get the apple. Somebody has to hold you while you're going. And we said, look, the problem's not price, because these kids don't pay for it anyway. Their parents are paying for it. They don't even know how much a piece of fruit costs. Instead, do this. Put it in a nice bowl and put it in a well-lit part of the line. Well, 5 schools did that, and sales for fruit went up not 5%, but like 103%. Okay, huge change. 2 schools said, no, that's obvious. It's not going to work. We've been doing this for 30 years. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work. And their sales went up 0%. And then one school said, I'm sorry, but I think we did it wrong. I'm like, really, how? Nice bowl, will-it part of the line. He said, well, what we did was we went into a closet. We had a desk lamp that wasn't being used. We put it on the lunch line over the fruit and turned it on. we said, oh, how did that work? She goes, oh, pretty well. Sales went up 187%. So our new solution now is put it in a nice bowl next to a desk lamp. Well, shortly after this happened, the USDA, they call it the People's Agency. People's Agency called and said, nobody buys salad. 2/3 of all high school lunchrooms have salad bars. Nobody buys it. What do? Do we subsidize it, or do we add more stuff to it, like those little bitty miniature corns, like the Malibu Barbie corn, I think is what it's. Well, let's take a look at the lunchroom. People come in the upper door right there. There's an a la carte line. There's hot lunch lines. There's a couple cash registers. There's a salad bar that's like it's like a compost heap with wheels under it. And you can make salad free, and people aren't going to take any. So what we said is, well, let's move it 10 feet. Just do this. Well, here's what you find if you move a salad bar, is that little Timmy, who's bought pizza for each of the last 150 school days, walks up with his pizza and he bumps in the salad bar. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like an alternative reality or something, like he's it's a Sims game or something. So he commits one direction or the other to go around the salad bar, and he does the same darn thing for the next 13 days or the next 9 days. But what we find is that on the 10th or 11th day, all of a sudden little Timmy's picking up that Malibu Barbie corn or something. So to the point that daily salad sales increased 200 to 300% within 2 weeks of us moving the silly salad bar. We didn't have to drop the price. We didn't have to bribe kids. We didn't have to have them do some, module in school talking about the benefits of salads. We didn't have to buy that at the school. We didn't have to buy the school a combine to have a school garden. Okay. Those are easy solutions. We'll do one more here too. I got a call a while back from the New York City Department of Health, and they said, chocolate milk has twice the sugar of white milk. What are your thoughts about banning chocolate milk from schools? Okay, well, it's time for a poll. Do you think chocolate milk would help kids eat better? 1, of course it would. 2, I'm not sure it would. Or 3, isn't there a better solution? Dum, 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 dum. Well, I think that's kind of neat, because one of the things we did is we said, well, what would happen? Because right now it's just a kind of a philosophical debate, or more of a almost political debate. Some people saying, yes, it would. Some people saying, let kids choose what they want. Yes, it would. Let kids choose what they want. So we did this really cool study in Oregon. In fact, it just came out yesterday, and Brooks has done a great job kind of promoting this. Brooks Ballard has been doing great things promoting this for the center. We were on Fox News this morning talking about it. But we went to 11 schools. We moved a group into Eugene, Oregon, studied 11 schools that banned chocolate milk. One of the things we find is there are bad things that happen when you ban chocolate milk. Yeah, it drops the sugar a little bit, but here's what happens. We found that kids took 9.9% less milk overall. It's like, well, if I can't have chocolate milk, I don't want any milk. And those who did take white milk, those who chose white milk threw 29% more of it away. They said, you're making me take this? And worse than anything, I think, is that 7% of all the kids in the school stopped eating school lunches. And you say, well, is that good or bad? Well, it's bad. I mean, what's been found is that about 3 out of every 4 kids who eat a hot lunch or school lunch eat better than kids who bring their lunch from home, because they're not eating Funyuns and a 2-liter of Mountain Dew. Well, so it made us think, are there easy things that you can do to help people eat better? And I'll tell you what we're going to do with chocolate milk in just a little bit. But we said, what are things that can be done in school lunchrooms to get kids to eat better? To get them to pick up an apple instead of a cookie, all the while having that option if they want. So we came up with this idea of, here's research that can nudge kids to make healthier choices. Like, for instance, we find the very first thing that a person sees in line, whether it be okra, whether it be kale, or whether it be Brussels sprouts, they're 11% more likely to take the first thing they see than the third thing. So why not put the healthiest thing first? We find, this gets really weird, we find that simply naming a food, and you can give it the stupidest name in the world, ends up increasing sales by about 27%. So you can call it something Power Peas or Crunchy Corn or California Blend. It's a Del Monte, it's from California, sure. But the thing is, these changes are so robust, it doesn't matter how far you go off the road, they still increase sales. I mean, here's an example. Hearty vegetable soup. Sales go up. So, now let's take a look at what this looks like in real life.
The masterminds behind the cafeteria redesign are Cornell University professors David Just and Brian Wansink. I wanted to know how they're going to basically trick teens into eating right.
So what are we doing here?
first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a bunch of the milk, put it in front, so if a person's thirsty, at least they have the option of picking something up, and at least they have to reach over the white milk if they want to pick up a flavored sugared beverage.
Step 2. They took the pizza, which was the first thing in the lunch line, and moved it towards the back. And the veggies and the healthy bean burrito moved right to the front. Step 3, they renamed the healthy food.
We find that changing something as small as calling these mixed vegetables California blend or the Big Bed bean burritos increased sales by about 27%.
Step 4, they moved the fruit from a plastic tub into a pretty fruit bowl. And finally, they took the cookies and put them just out of reach.
They're going to have to ask one of the food service workers to help pick it up. We think that's just enough of a barrier to keep some percentage of kids from saying, whatever, I'll have an orange.
The professors rolled up their sleeves, made their changes, and now it's lunchtime.
Oh, there she's getting her tray.
She grabbed a sandwich,
She's getting an Arizona iced tea, I think.
an orange juice,
And she got the cookie. So, Samantha, this time you didn't get the cookie and you got a piece of fruit instead. Why'd you get the fruit this time? Why do you think?
I don't know.
This was an unbelievable success. Fruit increased by 102% simply by putting it in a nice bowl.
The sweet drinks were also harder to get to, and Jane, Marcy, Richie, and Levante fell right into our trap. Last time they grabbed Gatorade, Snapple, and Arizona iced tea, but this time...
Well, the water was just in front, so I just grabbed it.
Sales of sugary drinks plunged by 17%, while purchases of easy-to-reach milk soared 46%.
Whatever was easiest to reach, that was good enough for them, and that was enough to get them to change.
Another hit, the Big Bad Bean Burrito, sold out for the first time ever. The professors say, on average, students' plates this time around contained about 18% fewer calories, and they made healthier choices.
Now, what was it Samantha said when they said, last time you got a cookie, this time you got fruit? Why'd you get fruit this time? I don't know. But this isn't just high schoolers, junior high kids doing this. We made all the changes to all the Google cafeterias out in Mountain View, San Francisco, and New York, and it's the same thing with Google people. The exact same thing happens. Well, we started this thing as Smarter Lunchrooms self-assessment scorecard. It's things, if you work with schools, you can use this. A couple of you beforehand who use this. It's 100 points, it's 100 easy things that research has shown gets kids to change. So here's a checklist, it looks something like this, but here's just milk. You know, if you want kids to eat more white milk, well, banning chocolate milk might not work, but making sure it's at least 30%, at least it's 1/3 of the cooler, increases sales by about 30%. Making sure it's in the front of the cooler, increases sales about 40%. If it's in 2 or more parts of the lunch line, it increases sales another 15%. Easy ways to nudge. If you do all 3 of those, you got 3 points already. Now our goal for this is by year 2020, we want 70% of all public schools to get at least a 70 on the scorecard. So big goals, but that's where we're pushing all of our efforts right now. Well, you know, in conclusion, I want to kind of go back to you. Oh, I guess, in conclusion, I want to go back to you. What's one thing you want to make sure is on your kitchen counter tonight when you get home? Oh, yeah, fruit bowl. What's the next thing you want to buy next time you go to Ben & Jerry's? Yeah. Small plates! Small plates! How do you want to eat Ben & Jerry's ice cream? In a bowl, and even better, a small bowl, okay? Okay, thank you very much.